In 1958, while a little girl was playing in the street with the other children, she was suddenly hit by a huge truck. Immediately, a huge crowd gathered around the child's motionless body. Within minutes, a medical team arrives and takes the little girl to Pernik Hospital as an emergency. Despite the efforts of the doctors there, she fell into a coma, and for 2 months her fate was in God's hands, not figuratively, but literally. When the child regains consciousness, she tells in detail what happened to her after the collision. She has seen the crowd, the struggle of the doctors in the hospital, and her body all this time. What is more interesting, however, is that during those 2 months between the two worlds, she meets God, who gives her a gift that brings her back to earth. Before the accident, Vera had brown eyes, but when she returned to our midst, she was now blue-eyed. However, this turns out to be the slightest change in her. This is the story of Vera Kochovska, a researched and globally recognized phenomenon who has helped tens of thousands of people with her gift. In 2006, she was the first woman to be awarded the title of the winner. The President of the Republic of Bulgaria awarded her a badge of honor in recognition of her help and dedication to the community. You'll find out what God looked like, who led her to Him, what she learned in heaven, and what the earth is really like in the next few minutes. It is as if the greatest phenomena are under the curse of an extremely hard earthly life. We have told you the shocking lives of Vanga and Sevryukova. Well, it seems Vera Kochovska is no exception to the rule. Born on 27th July 1945 as Vera Balkanska in Pernik, her childhood was extremely difficult. Her father Krom died while she was a child, and her mother ran away with another man immediately after the funeral, abandoning the unborn child. Vera was placed in the orphanage in the village of Kocherinovo. When she was 13 years old, she had an accident that changed her life forever. She is hit by a truck while playing. Immediately after the accident, the girl sees herself from above and the people crowded around her. She then sees the doctors in the ICU, and 2 angels come and carry her upstairs. Vera felt calm and trusted them. They transported her to another extremely beautiful world. There the angels placed her at the feet of God. However, she only saw Him as light. Kochovska spent a long time talking with the higher spirits. They gave her instructions for her future life, after which they told her it was time to return from whence she came. When coming out of the coma, the child begins to see the internal organs of the doctors who are around her and tells them what will happen to them in the future. She was already receiving information from the universal mind, which was transmitting facts about the past and the future to her. For many years, Vera hid her gift because she was afraid. Before 1990 in Bulgaria, the authorities did not look upon such things with very kind eyes. However, many people in high places of power went to Vanga and Slava for advice and help. But let's go back to Vera. In the 1980s, she went with her husband and children to Russia, where she worked in construction. It was there that she first began to divine, warning close friends of their impending troubles. However, a case became known, and people began to arrive at Kochovskia's house with problems and illnesses. After a few years, the whole family returned to Bulgaria and settled permanently in Pleven, where the phenomenon lived until her last breath. In 1989, a laboratory for interdisciplinary research of extraordinary phenomena was established at the University of Shumen. The university wanted to study Vera and conduct experiments with her. She agrees, and this marks a new chapter in her story. Any skeptics about her gift will be brought to their knees. The results are more than impressive. The scientists are astonished. During the experiments, several flasks of liquid were placed in front of Kochovska. At first glance, they were identical, but she described very accurately that in one of the tubes there were some little creatures that were like specks, very tiny and very numerous. It was indeed a flask in which there were staphylococci. In the other test tube which he points out, he says there are some little rods. There are many. Some are piled one on top of the other, but the individual rods are seen to be small and are in violent motion. There were salmonella in this flask, which she describes very accurately. It also pinpoints which flasks have only liquid in them. But scientists are taking the experiment to an even higher level. Behind a solid barrier located a few meters away from Vera, they placed glass containers with mice. Then they ask her what's behind the curtain. She tells them she sees glass vessels. In turn, the scientists ask if there is anything in the containers, and the phenomenon states that some of them are empty and others have animals in them. A new question follows. What are the animals? The answer follows little white mice. And are they alive? There are living ones and dead ones, he answers. And are they all healthy? No, she says, there are the healthy ones. In that beaker, there are the mice from the specks that were in one beaker, and in the other beaker, there are in them from the sticks from the other beaker. The researchers were shamed. Everything was exactly right. Experiments continue with crystal analysis, chemical analyses, and more. In 1991, during an experiment, scientists proved that Vera Kochovska, through her biofield, could change substances. This experiment was attended by a delegation of Japanese scientists who were, to say the least, astonished by the unearthly possibilities of the phenomenon, and immediately invited her to Japan for research with much more modern and advanced equipment. There, Vera predicts the wedding of the imperial prince as well as the next prime minister of Japan. In the land of the rising sun, professors from all kinds of institutes subject her to all kinds of research. It becomes clear that she can change the acidity of water, the degree of alcohol, and even blood pressure. During a séance, Vera's vital signs are like those of a person who is having a heart attack. At the end of the session, the phenom exhales plasma from her mouth in the form of a white cloud. A number of studies have been done on the substance, but it remains unknown to science to this day. The Japanese are so astonished at the gift and its possibilities that they declare it to be a being not belonging to the human race. Back in Bulgaria, in a crowded hall with people with problems of all kinds, one case made an impression. A visibly worried elderly woman hands 2 photos to Kochovska. More than 2 years ago, her daughter and grandchild disappeared. No one has seen or heard from them since. The woman has lost all hope and seems to be just waiting for the phenomenon to point out the location of her relatives' bodies. Vera grabs the photos and first shares some details of the daughter's life, then says, "To me, they are alive, and they are in West Germany in Frankfurt in a camp for foreigners." The woman bursts into tears and begins to embrace the phenomenon. But this is only a cursory example of Vera Kochovska's capabilities, for she has delivered tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people from their illnesses. She saw 700 people a day in her office. Asked how she succeeded, she answers, "They help me." It is extremely important for this story to stress that Vera Kochovska never took money for her help. There was a cashier outside her office, yes, but he was placed there by the state, and she did not take a penny of the money collected. She only accepted gifts from people close to her, or only when she felt like it. Many people wanted to repay her with large sums of money, and Vera had a dream that required a lot of money. She wanted to build a bone marrow transplant center for children. That way, even after she was gone, she would continue to help. A large sum was quickly raised for this noble cause. Unfortunately, in an old Bulgarian tradition, people from Kochovska's entourage misused her name and embezzled huge sums from the project for personal gain. Thus, it is not implemented. For the pure-hearted phenomenon, this lie brings unprecedented bitterness. Vera Kochovska herself says that what she possesses is more of a burden than a gift, because she has a lot to say, a lot to warn. "But does anyone hear me?" asks the prophetess rhetorically in the film Reports on faith director Stilian Ivanov. One of the most interesting phenomena shared is perhaps about what is happening here on Earth. And what the Earth actually is, well, simply put, the Earth is hell, and the dead roam among us, but we do not see them. Even now as you watch this video, there are some deceased hovering around you. So stop for a moment, say hello, and don't be afraid of it. You shouldn't be. They are here to help us. Every time you are avoiding the worst by a hair's breadth, as if some unseen force has stopped, pulled, or prevented you, it is one of the dead. It's good to get used to that thought and be grateful to the dead, because according to Vera, there have been no angels on earth for a long time. We have done our best to drive them away. They just can't watch and tolerate our shenanigans and have departed from here. In this regard, the phenomenon says very strong words in an interview with Veneta Raikova. "We destroyed ourselves, and what do you want for the other? We destroyed everything." But she also gives us hope by telling us that the only way to save ourselves is by believing in ourselves and purifying ourselves. In her final years, Kochovska was struck down by several strokes and struggled to recover. On February 11, 2011, the world lost perhaps one of the strongest conduits between our world, the divine and universal knowledge. Vera and her divine biofield fell asleep forever. Interestingly, in the small territory of Bulgaria, during almost the same period of time, another phenomenon that seems to have a similar relationship exists. Not only that, but she was one of the few clairvoyants who contributed to the development of science. But you can learn more about this incredible and even dramatic story by continuing with the video to the left of your screens.